Barrington. As taxpayers and the public, I would like you to know that my child is third math teacher, no social studies teacher. On December 21st, 2021, Dr. Anderson held a virtual town hall meeting to address, listen, and provide a solution for the ongoing teacher turnaround, especially math. At that meeting, several parents, including myself, asked him, what if the plan you proposed does not work out? Do you have a plan B? Dr. Anderson mentioned, nope, I'm confident. I reference checked, I cross-reference checked. We did a thorough interview process. This candidate is the candidate for Purple Cluster Math. He is going to get our students up to date. I'm confident we're going to present this candidate to the superintendent, but here we are. My question is, why did Dr. Anderson hire Mr. Sullivan? And why did the school committee fire Mr. Sullivan? Why wasn't that meeting recorded on February 17th? Was it a convenient thing or was it deliberate?
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to, if you would like to direct these questions to the superintendent and Dr. Anderson, you may do so, but during public comment, you really can't, and we really can't discuss or entertain.
I don't want you to discuss or entertain. This is just questions.
This is regarding individual personnel issues that we cannot.
This is not individual personal issues. Every single time a student, a parent of Purple Cluster Ethic voices their concerns, we are being shut down, we are being shooed, we are being just like wishy-washy, sending emails. It's going to be fine. We're going to get our kids up to date. So can we please take responsibility for the actions? We teach our children to take responsibility for their actions. So for once, can somebody just own up to their mistakes, saying, yeah, we made a mistake, it was a bad hire, so here we are facing the consequences. We have 2 school committee members who have their children in 8th grade. I bet they won't have these problems if they were in Purple Cluster. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I will have.
I don't want you to say anything.
I just want to Ms. Story and Dr. Anderson.
No, don't say anything.
Thank you.
Shelley Edgar, 14 South Meadow Lane, Barrington. So I understand that Purple Cluster parents received an email, which was forwarded to me maybe at 6:15. That did clarify some changes, particularly relating to the teacher. I think it's great that there are now some tutors, and it's wonderful that Mr. Marley's volunteering his time. I think before, the missing link was a dedicated teacher. Just also for the public to know, so these teachers, these parents and kids have not, in Canvas, they have 3 assignments posted since November 5th. That's 4 months of 8th grade math, and many of them social studies, 3 assignments posted. So that's 4 months. 4 months of essentially daycare at middle school for math and social studies. It's tragic that it's taken 4 months for these parents to get some action. And I guess if I have a child in the Purple Cluster, which I'm grateful I don't, even though I have an 8th grader, if I had one, I wouldn't want to assume any more risk with teachers. I think they deserve the best math teacher, one of the best ones we have that's already been teaching 8th grade math. They need a dedicated 8th grade math teacher, and the risk needs to be on a new teacher, needs to be placed, I think, with a younger grade. Frankly, they're going into high school next year. They'll have, this is algebra and pre-algebra. Going into high school next year, I just really think they need what our best teacher that's already tried and true at this point. They've experimented enough, and they've had enough, they've assumed enough of the risk. It needs to be spread to other members of our community, other students in our community at this point. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Karen Naff, 110 County Road. I just wanted to go on record again with the public about this and sort of step you through what these kids have been going through. My daughter's in the Purple Cluster in 8th grade. She has 1 teacher for both math and social studies, supposed to have. She hasn't had that. I was here over a month ago. Thank you for the response tonight, addressing this issue, but we don't have another minute to waste. As Shelley said, it's been 4 months. We have 3 months left. These kids are dying. Their teacher has not been at school at all this week. Apparently he was fired at the last school committee meeting. We haven't had any word from anybody about this. And Dr. Anderson told people that he was sick. So all this week is another week lost. These kids have a basketball coach showing up to keep the kids in line. He handed out a blank test this week, which they had actually taken the Friday before the winter break. The kids said, we've already taken this test. This is ridiculous. There was no plan. There was nothing left for the sub to do. I felt bad for that guy. So again, lost. Thank God for Mrs. D'Alessio, who has been holding the line on social studies. This is not her third of the cluster, but she's been keeping these kids going because whomever has been in this position over the last 6 months has not been teaching social studies. Last Friday, we received an email from Dr. Anderson positioned as solutions for the cluster. These were not baked at all. The only one out of 8 solutions put forward that actually had a name and dates to it was Bob Marley teaching preschool math. Thank God for him. And he actually has a kid in this cluster, as does another faculty member. 5 kids have shown up. The others, here's my favorite, summer school. Are you kidding me? We're gonna leave it to the kids to come and the families to come before school and get educated on math, no mention of social studies, and then they're gonna have to come at summer on their own time because they got screwed during the year because this group couldn't figure out how to get a consistent instructor in there. So I would agree with Shelley, and this is my last comment, take some responsibility. Put a bona fide certified math teacher in that role, take it from another classroom, and put Miss Collins, whom I don't know, I'm sure she's lovely and capable, put her in another class and solve this once and for all. Give these kids a fighting chance to end their 8th grade year having learned Algebra 1 and pre-algebra and figure out the social studies. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Brian Hughes, 18 Eaton Road. The Barrington School Committee had a chance to redeem themselves yesterday. Redeem themselves over all the poor decisions they've made in the name of data and science over the past 2 years. At the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know. We didn't have the data and we didn't have the science to make educated decisions. As time went on and we got to watch a COVID sitcom in real time, we got to witness a sharp divide form in our schools, our town, and our nation. From the beginning, we always knew that COVID had little to no effect on children. That is fact. As the sitcom progressed and the divide grew deeper, we here in Barrington doubled down. We fired our unvaccinated teachers for teaching unvaccinated children, forced our children to eat silent lunch, and made outside masks mandatory for our little ones, as if masking for 6 hours a day wasn't enough. Some of the older kids even developed terms called maskne for the acne that forms from the bacteria that is trapped inside the giant petri dish that they're forced to wear for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, plus sports. As towns and states around us dropped all the COVID restrictions, Barrington decided to triple down, as if having 679 students out in the height of the January COVID spike wasn't enough. That proved that vaccination was clearly a personal choice. We decided to drive that wedge even deeper by forcing our already overworked, overstretched teachers to take a vote that would require all teachers to be boosted by mid-March or follow a list of insane requirements like wear an N95 mask at all times because the science and data changed, submit to 2 weekly tests on their own time and their own dime because the science and data changed, secure a protected location to eat, remain at least 6 feet apart when drinking for short periods of time, complete daily assertion form, failure to comply may result in progressive discipline up to termination. Is this how a community treats its people? Is this how we promote diversity and inclusion? 2 words we know all too well when the shoe's on the other foot. To say the old saying, good for thee, but not for me. Your mask choice with a magic wand of COVID hanging over our head is not enough. Someone spent a lot of time with that 19-page slideshow listing all of the exceptions to mass choice. As I've said in plenty of my emails that not one has been responded to, you have created a one-way line of communication, and we have created a one-way street with masks. When the masks come off on Monday, they will not go back on, period. It's time that we as parents become the shield for our children. It is our responsibility to protect them, not the other way around. That is not negotiable. We have never argued that COVID numbers spike in winter and lie dormant in summer. Our argument has never been and never will be about that. It's how we compare against schools that have dropped almost all of their COVID vaccination measures with a similar climate and demographic, how our children have suffered irreparable harm, how our teachers have been and continue to be stressed to the max. We have a teaching shortage, as discussed here tonight. Once our teachers leave, they're not coming back. Please stop with all the red tape. I ask you again, I'm going to close right now. I ask you again, is this how a community treats its people? My great-grandparents grew up here. My grandparents grew up here. My mom grew up here. My family grew up here. And I'm here right now raising my children, and I'm not sure I want to raise them here, and that breaks my heart. My grandmother always said it only takes a few bad apples to spoil a bunch. We, the parents, will take care of those bad apples at the November election, if not sooner. We will take our town back, and then we will make our own decisions, all of the decisions, with the community involvement, communication, and dialogue. All things you have failed to do. Signed, we the parents.
Jessica Liberato, 4 Deep Meadow Road. I'd just like to start by saying I support mass choice with no conditions. It's a follow-up to what Brian said. I'm standing here tonight as a parent who has lost my patience with what has proven to be incompetence on the school committee and administrators' behalf. I have sat through hours of your regurgitating nonsense about grass growing, turf, the endless talks for a need of communication task force so that the administration could tend to actual school business instead of just answering emails. Let's discuss what school business really is. Apparently, it's firing teachers after the academic year has already begun, and then taking months to replace them. I have sat through the previous 4-hour school committee meeting, listening to many of the presentations by the principals. I wasn't surprised to hear about the decline in reading, especially among those with personal learning plans and special education learning. I would assume one of the first things you learn as an educator, and I know you learn as a parent, is that structure and routine are vital to learning. The consistency is even more important when you are dealing with children who have special learning delays, diagnoses like ADHD and dyslexia and anxiety. So why? Why am I a mother with a background in merchandising, helping to run a family business, telling you, the educators and administrators and the fellow parents sitting before me, how you are failing at your job? How could you possibly think the termination of teachers mid-year would benefit our children? Why in the beginning of March is my 9-year-old daughter still coming home in tears, telling me she is now on her 3rd reading specialist in 7 months? She wants to know why it is her who has to switch groups again. Is this what you call structure? The bottom line is that you never considered the long-term repercussions of your decision to enforce the vaccine mandate. Or you simply just didn't care. I'm not sure which one's worse.
Hi, Janine Wolf, 5 Ninja Crossing. I still have typing. I'm not sure if any of what these parents have said has been understood. But I don't have a student in the schools right now, and I have to say that I'm really glad I don't, and I'm really ashamed of what the schools in Barrington have become. Because when my kids went through these schools under Ralph Malafronte, he ran these schools like a tight ship. We wouldn't be having teachers fired. We wouldn't have vacancies. It's March, and these 8th grade kids have not had math. Are you kidding me? This school system used to be superior. People moved here at a great loss in house size to have their kids in the Barrington schools. And I am embarrassed, really embarrassed, that I have not been more active and stayed more on top of this, because every kid in this community is a kid that belongs to everybody in this community. And we are doing them a huge injustice. This baloney first came to my attention when I read about teachers being fired for not taking an experimental vaccine that doesn't stop infection or transmission. And I'm really, really in need of the information that you base that decision on to throw all of these kids into a tailspin with no teacher over an experimental shot that was not going to prevent a single person from being infected. Where is the information that that decision was made on? Because I need to see it, okay? I am shocked. Who is controlling this school board, and who is making these kinds of decisions that benefit no one, okay? I think that the 8th grade kids who have lost this much of the school year should have the ability to pursue. I can recommend an online program called Alex that will guide these kids through and have them caught up in no time. And I think that this school district should pay for every single one of those kids to be enrolled in that class so that they can be ready for high school. There's nothing more competitive than high school and college admissions. It's the most stressful, important thing in an adolescent kid's life, particularly an adolescent kid from a pretty affluent school system. They need to be ready. They need to be ready. And it's on you, because you dropped the ball. Okay? I also want to know, I just heard reference that, for election day, we'll have a Zoom day. When everybody knows that Zoom is not an effective teaching tool. Who made the decision and when that it was okay to just swap out days for Zoom days? It's instead of adding a day onto the end of the year because we lost a day to elections, we'll just call it a Zoom day and be done with it. I want to know, when was it addressed by the citizens of this town that that was okay to do? Because I don't remember voting for that, because I wouldn't have. That's it. Thank you.
Peter Blanchard, 79 Walnut Road. I don't have any kids in school, but I have 3 grandkids in the Barrington school system right now. One's on the school system. She's in preschool. That I spent a lot of time babysitting with my wife this year. My son is an algebra teacher here at the junior high. He's been here a number of years. It's been a real stressful year trying to keep up with the fact that they can't get subs. They have trouble replacing teachers. And when I talked to him, he's so frustrated with it. And then was it a week or 2 ago, he gets threatened to be fired if he doesn't get a booster after all that, I won't say the word that he's gone through. He's not at the meeting tonight. He would have come, but he's babysitting his kids because his wife is a nurse and works nights very often, and we helped him babysit. I don't know what he'd do if we didn't have him. But if this ever happened, that he lost his job because of this, I personally would make the biggest effort and be willing to spend a hell of a lot of money to get new people on these committees and stuff. And I've already talked to a lawyer. he doesn't like me to say stuff like that. Like, I think he's one of your good algebra teachers, and he was talking about how you have a hard time. They were teaching extra classes to try to cover on some of these kids, and they feel bad about it. So, you know, I taught school for 40 years. I was at a private school right here in town. I've lived here for 50 years. I worked at St. Andrews. A lot of tough kids, a hell of a lot tougher than the people they have come to school here. But we did the best we could with those kids. And he's teaching math because he loves to teach it and he loves teaching. I just hope you don't come up with any more crazy ideas like this.
Kyla Daly, 7 Greenbrier Drive. I've spoken out since August about my opinions on the children being masked and then the adults being vaccinated and how discriminating it was. Clearly there's a lot of people here who feel the same. Tonight I'm going to take a little different approach. I've emailed, I've been frustrated, I've been angry, I have been talking with the Boston Civil Rights Office about the discrimination. And I'm from a Catholic family, and my mother always said, constantly, it was something that she said to me, when somebody was doing something that I felt was completely unjust or wrong, was, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that keeps playing over and over in my head, because I really, truly believe that you don't know what you're doing, in the aspect of not your intelligence, but in the aspect of you have no idea how much harm you have done to the children. You have no idea how much harm you've done to the faculty and staff, to the parents, on an emotional level, on an intelligence level with the kids being, you know, in the 8th grade especially, kids at the purple cluster level. There's been so much wrongdoing, and all I can ask is that you take responsibility for it, that you stop for a minute and you just say, maybe we messed up. If you don't think that, then that's in God's hands. But if you do believe that you maybe made a mistake with the teachers and firing them, if you maybe made a mistake with overreaching with your rules, if maybe you made a mistake in any aspect of this, of not including the parents, of not listening, of not letting us have a voice, not letting us be involved in our children's lives, then please just stop. Just stop and apologize. Just stop. I thought with that email that we were going to be getting, every other district has come out and just said masks are optional now. My son's school said, we are done. His high school, he goes to a different high school, we're done, and the only thing that we're not going to tolerate is anybody bullying or talking bad about someone who chooses to wear a mask. That was it. Many other districts, it's now just mask optional. You still have a 19-page slideshow about what's happening in Barrington. Boston has dropped their mandates. Rhode Island has dropped all their mandates. California, New York, Rhode Island healthcare workers can now go to work unvaccinated. What are you holding on to? What is happening in this town? What is happening inside this school building that I can come in here now unmasked? That Sunday I could come in and go to my son's basketball game and spend 2 hours in this building unmasked, with their coaches unmasked, with the students unmasked. Nobody asking about vaccination status. In your 19-page slideshow, there's a difference between what's happening during the day and what's happening during the night. What science is that? What logic is that? It's just so obvious now that you made a mistake. So please just take responsibility and we'll let it go. I'll let it go. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Ellen Schaefer. I'm not going to state my address tonight. It's already a matter of public record. And I would like for the recording secretary to note that the reason why I'm not providing it is due to the Rhode Island Association of School Committee disseminating a letter from the FBI threatening parents such as myself who have attended school committee meetings in the past without a mask, with the label of being a domestic terrorist because of my attendance as such. And I would further request that the recording secretary record that as long as Barrington Public School spends taxpayer dollars for membership on RIASC, the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, where Chair Gina Bay sits on the board and who is responsible for disseminating that letter, I and anyone who attends a school committee meeting without a mask continues to be under this threat. So that has not been forgotten or resolved. Now that I responded to the committee's request to provide my address, I'm going to move on to my public comments. 3 out of 4 of the executive session agenda items this evening address matters of litigation, each unique in its status of either threatened, ongoing, or anticipated. The 4th item is related to the other 3 in that it's subject to the same underlying COVID-19 policy 2021-22 that prompted the legal activity in those cases and does have an ongoing OMA violation case of its own. The school committee is involved in other ongoing litigation as well. These 4 are only the items discussed this evening, but reviewing back only a handful of months to October 2021, there are at least several more. What is wrong with this picture? According to fiscal year budget 2022, and I might be slightly off on the dates, but going back to 2020 even, there's been, I believe, in the realm of $225,000 spent on legal fees. And my concern is that this committee is so steeped in litigation that all of these problems that are being expressed about the children not receiving a proper education are because you don't have the time to spend on the kids when you're in litigation all the time. I would propose that either you are getting bad legal advice, and this would be the reason why you can't seem to get through the litigation, or you're getting good advice and not following it. It is possible for this committee to put out a request for proposal for new legal counsel. It has been done in other school districts, and I believe in Foster, that there is an RFP out for new legal counsel because that committee is dissatisfied with John Anderson, who also advises this committee. And we'll be looking at proposing the same for Sarah Rapport, who is also responsible for the tremendous amount of legal fees that is being spent by taxpayer dollars. So all the problems that are being enumerated here tonight are the reasons why you're in litigation and are distracting from your real jobs, which is to be providing the education for our children. And these issues aren't going away. I also want to note that there's nowhere on the agenda tonight that you've actually voted on this ridiculous 19-page document that you've concocted. So that, as far as I know, there's no policy. If that's a policy change, that needs to be read and voted on. So as far as I know, that's totally invalid and null and void, and every child is free to go to school without a mask tomorrow when that mandate is lifted, and does not have to adhere to any of this yellow level nonsense and the vaccinated versus unvaccinated having to jump through different hoops depending on their vaccination status. I hope the public can also reach out to BarringtonParentsUnited.com for anybody in the purple cluster. We would love to support you and help your voices get heard as well. And any of the issues that are being spoken about tonight, we encourage you to reach out, and we'd love to help you. Thank you.
Mike, could you possibly clarify why the school committee is not voting on the changes in guidance and how we haven't voted on any of the protocols that have taken place.
Guidance that, or the document that was released to the public outlining how the district's going to be following COVID-19 protocols is not a policy, but it's a procedure that's established by my office and with the advice and guidance from my reentry task force. So it's not a policy decision that has to be voted on. We have a policy that kind of oversees the operation of the district, but this is strictly a procedural piece that comes from our office.
Is public comment still open?
Yes.
I'd like to make a public comment.
Pat Ford, Cumberland, Rhode Island, stepping out of my role for a second. Just have to comment that I attend school board meetings throughout the state. If in fact it's not to be voted on, what is the bylaw differential in Barrington? How would you justify that when virtually every other municipality and city in this state has actually conducted an open board meeting with a votes being on the record in public? How do you justify that? It's a job public comment. I go to school board meetings all over the state. I look like this some days. I have to tell you, this editorially, this is possibly the biggest embarrassment I've seen in literally 30 plus years of politically covering school boards. I've attended court hearings. I've listened to the nonsense. This was arguably the finest school system in the state, if not one of the finest in New England. Look what you've done to it.
That was a question, by the way, not just a comment. I'd love comment on why other school boards have votes and people go on the record. And regardless of what this decision is, they're on the record. And I think as individuals, you need to be on the record. This is an election year, and the people are entitled to understand which of you they need to vote against. Thank you. Bueller?
Are there any members in person who wish to provide public comments? If not, I will move on to the member comments.
Since we stepped out of the role, that was a question.
Your public comment period?
No, that wasn't public comment. If he actually opened up the conversation, this meeting, then I would ask him, out of respect for the people who work all day and came here tonight, perhaps you can explain why Barrington appears to be one of the only school districts in the state not willing to take a public vote on a policy. That wasn't just an editorial comment.
What is the answer?
The answer is it's not a policy and it does not need to be voted on.
Yes, it needs to be voted on. That is what we're trying to say again and again and again. That is what the gentleman was saying that.
Who do you think you people
No,
are?
sorry. No. We need an answer. Who are you to make those
If
politics?
anybody else wishes to hold a public comment, you are
Then why did he take the time to explain? If he, there needs to be a two-way communication here.
Public comment is not necessarily a two-way communication or
Oh,
dialogue.
you guys are the bosses?
I'm sorry.
You make up the rules?
If anyone wishes to provide public comment, you may do so.
There was a policy established. Do not want to vote on it. Why? And then we question it. No, it's a policy that cannot be voted. Why? Why is it a control thing? Why is it my way or the highway? We are entitled to an answer. That policy needs to be on the table. It needs to be voted on.
So the clarification is, it is not a policy, it is a protocol, it is district procedures. Those are two very different things.
You just said it was policy 2 seconds ago.
That's it. I'm done. We're moving on. There are many other.
No, we are not moving on.
Is the attorney here, can you establish under state law exactly where these made-up terms, these made-up concepts, or can you at least just admit to us that you're winging it? Cite us law, cite us, I assume, Mr. Rapport.
I suggest that 19-page presentation, bring it to the table, let it vote on. If it was a protocol, who made the protocol? Is that who are they? Are they infectious controls experts? Are they doctors? Are they nurses? Are they physicians? Who are they who made that protocol? Where did you get the information from? Was it evidence-based research? I know a little bit about science, so please don't talk to me like I don't know what I'm talking about.
I would like you to sit down, please. Thank you.
I would stand or I would sit. It's my wish. Who are you to tell me that?
on the
You're all
chair.
fighting.
I don't care, I wanna stand, I don't wanna
I'll
stand.
ask you one more time.
No, I don't wanna sit. I wanna stand. I want to stand. I don't want to sit. I can do whatever I want to do. This is a free country. I came to United States from India because this is a free country.
You can't see that.
You can't tell me what to do. You can control me where I should stand, where I should sit, or if I should sit, or if I should stand. Okay? Listen to what you're saying. Don't talk to me like that.
Move on to public comment for those attending on Zoom. And Zach, I just want to verify, do I need to have the camera off?
We got more. Hi, can I speak? Hello? My name's Jason.
Can I just address the people on Zoom to
Sure.
wait then? Because I was going to open it up for those people, but I'll let them know. We'll be right with the people on Zoom in 1 minute.
Hi, thanks. So first time at a school committee. Sorry about that. I usually had a lot of faith and trust that the school committee was doing the right thing. And man, talk about a major letdown over the past year and a half. Major letdown. I think if you guys wanted to do the right thing, you would all tenure your resignations right now during this meeting. My wife would be a lot more couth about this. Yeah, so she's hopefully now watching me on video. But what you've done to the students, the lack of transparency, the fact that you're creating policies, procedures, or protocols on your own, calling them whatever the heck you want to call them, and then saying we can't vote on them, is ridiculous. You're not listening to the parents. I don't need this school committee to be a medical proxy for my children. I have been responsible for keeping them healthy and safe their entire lives, and I will always do that. I do not need you to tell me that they need to wear a mask all day in school, in silent lunch, in one room, without moving. It's ridiculous. People have the right to choose. If they want to wear a mask, they should be able to choose to wear a mask. If they don't want to wear a mask, they shouldn't have to wear a mask. It's that simple. If there's science that shows me wearing a mask is the best thing I can do for my kids, then I'm going to put them in a mask. Show me the science. Show me that masking a child for 6 or 7 straight hours during the day is the healthiest thing for them. And I will be excited to put them in a mask. You, by the way, all look ridiculous in your masks.
Sorry, one more. My name's Erica Tupig for Eleanor Drive. I'm actually not going to talk about masks because everybody covered that. But on top of the mask issues and all the BS that our children have gone through in the past almost 2 years, my child goes to Primrose, and I just found out this week that they no longer have a music and an art room because of the new preschool, which kudos to the town, we have another preschool. I'm very excited. But guess what? I'm so not excited for my child to be still sitting in the same classroom for every single subject, lunch, now art and music as well. That's complete bullshit. Excuse my language again, second time. I just want to bring that up because, again, you are failing our children. It's just another example among all of these examples of failing our children. Again, how many disappointments do they have to have? Keep it up, guys.
We'll move on to public comment for those joining us on Zoom.
Be great, thanks.
My name is John Kittredge. I live in 6 Brick Pond Drive. Can you guys hear me there? Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to take this. All right. Can you hear me, Gina? Let me just turn off the lights. That'd be confusing. Alright, so a couple of things. Number one, I've been very encouraged by everything that I've seen tonight in this meeting, frankly. I want to thank the school committee for actually doing something about Purple Cluster. I have an 8th grade daughter who used to be in Purple Cluster, and we switched her out to another school in January after our emails went unanswered, our concerns went unaddressed, and we just basically watched her fall apart over the course of the year. I think it's wonderful that you guys are serious now about actually trying to fix something, but I remain unconvinced that you have either the will or the capability of doing it. I agree with the other parents that have spoken for the Purple Cluster today, saying you should take a math teacher who knows what they're doing, who's already established, and move them in Purple Cluster immediately. Having these kids repeat next year is not an option. Having them take summer school should not be an option. That's an abject failure. And I agree with the last speaker, though, 2 speakers ago, who said, if that's where we are, you all should just resign immediately. You should have an immediate election to replace you all. I'd like to thank the Barrington Police for coming tonight. I understand that they're there. The Barrington Police come only when emails go unanswered, when concerns go unaddressed, and when the school board does their own agenda and jams it down our throats without talking to us or caring what we think. And I'm going to put that out there. Insofar as the 8th grade Purple Cluster, my daughter in her 8th grade Purple Cluster experience went through 4 math teachers, 1 science teacher, a Spanish teacher, a course teacher, and a social studies teacher that was never there. Mrs. Valesio is amazing, and she filled the gap, but she's fundamentally the English teacher, supposed to. So what is that? 1, 5, 6, 7 teachers that were gone. And that was when we pulled her out. Now another math teacher's gone. So I think that all of those things really come together under the term abject failure. I think that I look at my daughter now that she's in a real school, now that she's in the school that Barrington was and is supposed to be, and she's thriving once again. And I feel terrible for all the children that are trapped in Purple Cluster still. This is a problem that should have been addressed last year. In the budgeting process, we went from 1 teacher for 25 students to 1 teacher to 23 students, and you could have had the 4th teacher for the 8th grade. There's 275 kids. Adding 1 extra teacher would have gotten you down to 23 students per teacher instead of 25. That's not that expensive, and I'm sure it's a heck of a lot cheaper than everything you've cobbled together this year to try to fix this problem. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Devin Smith, South Meadow Lake. I'm just going to tell a quick analogy, which I think is very appropriate here. So in 1978, there was a United Airlines jet headed to Portland, Oregon. And when they were coming in for landing, they dropped the landing gear and a warning light sounded. So they aborted the landing. The pilots had thousands of hours of flying. They were extremely experienced. They then spent the next 2 hours circling, trying to figure out what this light meant. But they didn't monitor the fuel situation, and guess what? They ran out of gas, and the plane crashed, killing a bunch of people. It turns out the warning light was actually a dummy light. And this analogy reflects what's happened over the last 2 years with the administration and the school committee. Instead of focusing on academics, the focus has been on a warning light. And guess what? This plane is crashing. You've forgotten to worry about academics. I run a biotech company, and if I make any of the colossal errors made by this group, from de-leveling to the new building fiasco to the Purple Cluster disaster and the 15 things in between, I would be fired, and I should be. This committee and the process of interaction with parents is broken. You just sit there. You never respond. You wait till we're done, then you go back to your meeting. You don't listen, you don't communicate, and you don't care what parents say. You wonder why people are upset? That's why. There's never a response, never an apology or a mea culpa. You have a serious problem with the members of this community. And guess what? You forget, we are your bosses. It's time for change. We're going to make that change, or you guys can make it faster and just resign. It's ridiculous. Thank you.
Winter Street, Rehoboth, Massachusetts. I am a school committee member in Dayton, Rehoboth, and the way that you guys have handled parental communication is tyrannical, authoritarian, and it's not right. As a school committee member in your neighboring town and state, whether I disagree or agree, I always respond by email, phone call, text message to the people that I serve. Also, I'm a licensed mental health clinician in the state of Rhode Island. The mental health that masks are doing to our children is detrimental and borderlining on abuse. Children are having body dysmorphic disorder. They want to wear a mask, not because they're afraid of COVID, but because they don't like how they look. That's not okay. We want to teach kids that we want them to show their faces, their smiles. You need to, as a school committee, need to listen. Please look at me. Listen to them when they're talking. They deserve a choice. These kids deserve a choice to mask or unmask. Let the parents be the medical professionals and mental health professionals of their children. Thank you.
Lori Gaddis-Barrett, Gloucester, Rhode Island. I'm here tonight to represent ParentsUnitedRhode-Island.com. We work very closely with your local parents group, Barrington ParentsUnited.com. And I wanted to let you know, and you may already be aware, there are 36 school districts in the state of Rhode Island, 34 of which are elected. Over 20 of them have our mask choice without condition. About 8 of them have signaled that they will vote mass choice. And there are probably 3 to 4 that are in flux, such as here in Barrington. 2 have signaled that the mask mandate will continue, and those 2 are under state control. But we're here tonight really to talk about one school committee, which is Barrington. Earlier, I saw on your agenda a pretty long litigation list that you were discussing in executive session, and I wanted to let you know more is coming. Earlier today, I was on the phone with a national law firm seeking plaintiffs, specifically in the state of Rhode Island. They were looking to support parents who wanted to put a return address on bad behavior by school committees. It's my position that it's fiscally irresponsible to continue these ridiculous policies that are resulting in litigation. a speaker earlier referred to what was happening in Gloucester. I can confirm that the Gloucester Regional School Committee did recently put out their attorney representation for a request for a proposal. The question for us up here was, is the advice that we were getting resulting in litigation that then turned around and enriched the firm that gave it to us at taxpayer expense? I heard earlier also the superintendent talk about the reason that you weren't voting. There was a procedural issue. It wasn't a policy. I'm not sure that's accurate, but I did attend a couple of weeks ago your policy subcommittee meeting where you referred it to the attorney to rewrite it. It seems to me that the policy subcommittee would need to vote on it and then bring it before the school committee. But I guess we can let the attorney general decide that. It's very easy to avoid some of the parent outrage and grandparent outrage. I'm so proud of every speaker that I heard tonight. You are right on. There are resources coming to help you. And, what the Barrington School Committee needs to do right now is make math optional. There's no 19-page slide deck that's going to alleviate the rage that you're hearing from your parents, grandparents, and taxpayers tonight. And, in the spirit of cooperation, please take a step back, think about what you're doing, and think about it as a campaign issue. You're not trusting the parents before you tonight. Some of you will be knocking on doors asking for that same trust as you ask for their votes when you're up for re-election. Thank you.
Aaron Santos, 11 Western Ave. So I just want to say that, and I know we're not being personal or whatever, but I'm just going to say something about how I personally feel, and that's that I'm a trusting person, and I want to see the good in everything, and it really bothers me that there's so many lawsuits that we have to, everybody's suing. It's just nobody can talk rationally anymore without suing. It's in order for me to think that, I wanted my child possibly to stay back because I was concerned he wasn't ready because of everything. And it's well, the option is that you have to get this thing involved to sue in order for that to happen. Or, my daughter who has, severe, cerebral palsy and has so much drooling happen that she has to wear a bib and she's continuously maxed the entire time, which is not really safe for her. And the only way for me to stop that is to sue. And it's if I have to sue the people that I'm entrusting with my children, that really bugs me. It really that just bugs me. But anyway, so one of the things that also really bothered me was there was a statement in a couple of meetings ago. Well, when you fired the other teachers, it was whatever. So it was 1943 Supreme Court. A parent cannot claim freedom from compulsory vaccination for the child more than for himself. Even the right to practice religion freely does not include the liberty to expose the community or child to communicable disease or the latter to ill health or death. Which I understand what you're saying, but it's not relevant to, in my mind, what COVID is, but for children. There has been many case studies on the CDC and NIH that state that transmission and illness continue after being fully vaccinated. So why are we still not allowing unvaccinated parents to volunteer and have a chance to see what the school life is for the children? It's hard to trust people that are so secretive and want to push you out of being involved. Under no existing law that I'm aware of, is the school committee unable to engage with parents of this town in regards to the continued vaccine mandates for the teachers who are imposed on school staff that does not allow for religious freedom under Title 7 or 9 or whatever, according to the school committee. Would the school committee mandate be imposed on our children come fall, which I guess would be from the Rhode Island Department of Health? And under Rusewitz versus Wayne, which is another lawsuit with effectively eliminating product liability litigation with the school, on vaccines and vaccine injury, would the school committee superintendent, be having to allocate funds if there was a vaccine injury on these teachers? And there was also this other study, because once you start reading into things, there's all these other case studies that come up. So there's a Benda-Harvard study from 1953 that says, in the absence of consent by parents or guardians, would be taken as an assumption that permission is granted. And so I feel the need to say, which I also am emailing, that I do not give permission to vaccinate or continue to condemn those who have chosen not to experiment on themselves and on their children. The bottom line is, I don't want to feel wary about sending my children into school. I do trust that the teachers that remain are doing their best to remain upbeat, positive about everything, and try to handle teaching, which is really important with all the turmoil that this has created. Please consider those who choose to advocate for their children to do so because they know what's best for their family doctors whose opinions that we've taken into consideration, and the research that we do through a variety of research papers and venues have given us the knowledge to make the decision for my child. Please help us to trust this organization again for the sake of the community and, more importantly, for our children. Thank you.
Meredith Guerrero, 324 Rumstick. I just wanted to comment because I think you're feeling a lot of the passion and the energy around the parents really wanting to engage. And I can speak from someone who moved here only a year and a half ago. So in the mix of the pandemic, in the thick of it. And I too am passionate in terms of trying to help and hopefully bring the community together. But literally, I have been met with such resistance. So you are dealing with people who are experts within their field. Like, we can bring such good education and support to the system, and yet we are basically held outside. I have asked and said, why don't we survey the parents? Why don't we bring them into the fold? No answers. I will ask for specific questions to where the data is. How are we making decisions? What are the scenarios we're weighing? No answers. It's all roundabout, it's all very convoluted, it's all very gray. And I think now you're seeing the groundswell. And I just want everyone to realize the magnitude of what we're at right now. And I wake up every day trying to be a better person. I wake up every day trying to do better at my job, trying to be a better mom, trying to be a better friend. And I just feel like we are at a breaking point right now, where we are just at odds. And it is so sad and it's disheartening that we are at this point. And I beg that we try to find middle ground and we try to find a way to communicate, because this is not working. And I hope that you can see this. And I just want to speak for the hundreds of parents that I have now been in contact with, that this is not just a sliver of a voice. And we cannot make assumptions. I think Megan responded to one of my emails saying, like, well, she's heard both sides. There is no data supporting both sides. We're making assumptions. And I think, like, if we want to move forward and actually make educated decisions together, where you have the parents weighing in a very constructive way, we need to change. We need to find new processes and we need to come together. And, I just hope we can do that. And so, thank you. But that's it.
Sorry, you're not muted. Can you hear me? Okay. So I was actually not going to speak tonight. I was at the first hour and a half of this meeting and decided when I came home, sure, why not? I'm going to talk about the fact of volunteering, parent volunteering. I have been a parent volunteer since my children started at NAE 6 years ago. From field trips to teacher, parent-teacher, to volunteering in the lunchroom whenever the school would email me. The schools need volunteers. I get emails weekly, pretty much begging parents to come and volunteer. You have the parents willing to go in, but the district is telling us that we cannot. I'm unvaccinated. If you tell me I have to wear a mask when I go into school, I don't wear a mask anywhere besides work when I'm forced to. I will wear a mask. You are not just hurting the kids for not allowing the parents to interact with them in school. You are hurting the teachers who need the parents to come and volunteer. You can't discriminate against parents based on vaccination status. You need to allow everybody back into the school. And I just want to say one thing. I have been sending emails to our superintendent for the past year. I just find it a little coincidental that tonight at 5:45 is the first time he responded back to me. Pretty much the email stated exactly what I just said, and how before COVID I was a volunteer, and how he cannot just discriminate against unvaccinated parents. You need to allow all parents back into the school. You cannot just discriminate against the unvaccinated. That's all, thank you.